In this video, you will learn what big wall and edge climbing is, where big walls are around the world, how to choose a route and a partner, and how to prepare for your first wall so you don't end up having a total epic. A big wall is, as the name suggests, a big wall of rock. Essentially, a big wall is a rock which is too big to climb in a single day, for most climbers. Food, water and other gear is taken up in a haul bag, and nights are spent sleeping on a portaledge or some other natural ledge, thousands of feet off the ground. With gourmet food, a guaranteed great night's sleep, and excellent sunbathing opportunities, it's strange that big wall climbing remains an obscure thing to do. Unless you are a very good free climber, most routes require some sort of aid climbing to reach the top. Aid climbing is the process of using gear to support your weight as you ascend. A knowledge of aid techniques allows you to climb routes which are way beyond your free climbing abilities. Easier aid climbs typically involve using the same trad protection that you're already familiar with. More specialist aid gear, such as pitons and copperheads, is needed if you advance to harder routes. Here's how it works. The leader climbs a pitch by aiding or free climbing, or both. As well as being tied in to the lead rope, the leader also takes a haul rope with them. At the end of the pitch, the leader sets up the belay and the hauling system. The follower releases the haul bag, and the leader begins pulling it up. Normally, the leader does not belay their partner. Instead, they fix the rope so the follower can jumor up. The leader then hauls the bag, whilst at the same time, the follower jumors the rope and cleans the gear out of the pitch. Once both climbers are at the top, the system is repeated, seemingly forever until you eventually reach the top of the wall, a few days or maybe a week later. So you want to climb a big wall? But where on earth are they? Yosemite Valley has the highest concentration of accessible big walls in the world. These are roadside by big wall standards. There are hundreds of routes on high quality bomber granite walls that seem to stretch on forever. There is everything from beginner aid routes to A5 nail-ups and super hard big wall free climbs. It is the best place to start. There are also some other beginner friendly walls over here in Zion National Park, which has a good amount of clean aid routes that involve a mix of free and aid climbing. Sandstone splitters forever, dude. Over in the Fisher Towers, the routes are shorter, but they sure don't feel like it. Expect choss, terrible gear, and high adventure. You better go climb them soon before they fall down. Leaving the desert, we head over to the depths of the Black. The Black. The Black. Massive walls in a deep canyon that is notorious for loose rock and long, difficult routes. Moving north to Canada, we have some large granite spires in the Bugs, which has everything from super chill bore ridge scrambles to unrepeated big walls. And in the town of Squamish, the Chief is a small big wall which has a few decent aid routes. Or at least it did until they all started falling off a few years ago. Nearby in the Daniels River Valley, there are some relatively unexplored walls up to 1,000 meters tall. But be prepared to share your base camp with grizzly bears. Not far away, there is a top secret, super hidden valley of unclimbed big walls, which is exactly here. And in the Eldred Valley, there are more granite walls with quality dirt-filled cracks, guaranteed to turn your portaledge into a flower bed. In Norway, there are some impressive and dangerous big walls in Gerag. And further north, the infamous Troll Wall. Over 1,000 meters of nice choss. In Patagonia, the Torres del Paine is a wild and windy expanse of granite walls over 1,000 meters tall. Climbing a wall here will be an epic adventure. Further north, more ridiculously massive granite towers can be found in the Fitzroy Massif. Patagonia is notorious for fast-changing weather. Either wait for a good weather window and climb fast and light, or be prepared to do some portaledge surfing. Load up the donkeys! We're going to Kyrgyzstan! The Karavshin Valley has some huge walls at a fairly high elevation. Kyrgyzstan is an awesome place that's cheap, beautiful, and full of genuinely friendly people. Moving across the Himalayas, there are many more infrequently climbed high-altitude walls, such as Great Trangor Tower. In the Canadian Arctic, Baffin Island has perhaps the highest number of unclimbed big walls on the planet. The walls are scattered around in very remote areas, and you can expect to share your base camp with polar bears. Be prepared to climb in all kinds of weather. At least the rock is pretty bomber. Except that bit. And at the other end of the world, Antarctica is probably the coldest and most difficult place to go rock climbing, but it does have some pretty cool looking walls. This isn't every big wall on the planet, but it should be enough to keep you busy for a little while. Choosing the right partner is probably the most important part of the climb. It'll make the difference between having a great time and having a total nightmare. The best partner is someone who you already know well, someone who you've already climbed with before, and someone who shares the same goals as you. Because then when you're on the wall, you'll have a lot of fun whether you reach the top or not. Climbing with someone who you just met off the internet. It might work, it probably won't be as good. That works well with single pitch climbing or going to the gym or something. When you're on a wall, it's a bit more intimate. You're literally filling up poo bags immediately next to each other. And if you already know each other, it kind of makes the experience a bit more enjoyable. You know when you can't think of anything else in life except a particular climb? That's the climb you should do. Now, you might not be ready to do that climb right now, but that's okay. Just allow plenty of time to practice the stuff and you'll get there. It might be that your best climbing partner is yourself. Well, I haven't covered solo systems in this course because it is kinda complicated, super dangerous. It's pretty niche, but maybe in the future I'll cover soloing. Do you want to climb fast and light or slow and heavy? Some climbers like to move fast because then you can bring less stuff, which means less hauling, which means more time climbing instead of hauling, which means more fun. Other climbers like to bring tons of gear and spend a week or more hanging out on portaledges, which is also fun. In general, moving slower is safer, which is typically the same with trad climbing. This is usually because you spend that extra time placing more gear, equalizing gear, checking your partner's tie-in knots, or many things like that. It's also possible to move slow and be super sketchy, which happens to climbers who didn't really practice anything. Or you could move pretty fast while being reasonably safe, because you have practiced a lot and have become super efficient at each system. There is a big difference between moving really fast because you have the skills to do that, and moving really fast but you don't really know what you're doing and everything is epically sketch. It's a bit like driving a car. You learn the proper way first, it's kind of slow, and then once you've passed your test you can start speeding things up a little bit if you want. But it's important to learn the slow way first, and big wall climbing is kind of like that. So you want to climb a big wall, but where do you begin? You begin with a training plan. In this course, I've included a training plan. It's not very good, but it gives you a good idea of what sort of things you probably should be practicing. Depending on what you want to climb, you might not need to know anything about 3-to-1 hauling, or placing pitons, for example. Or maybe you need to add things, like being able to replace anchor bolts. So modify it as you wish. It might seem like a lot of stuff, but many of these skills can be practiced at the same time. It's recommended to practice your entire training plan at a single pitch crag first, and get super solid at each technique before progressing to a multi-pitch. And then practice everything again on some short multi-pitches before getting on bigger and more committing climbs. It's super important that you do actually go outside and practice all of the stuff in your training plan before you get on the wall. This course is useless if you don't practice. Many of these skills can be safely practiced at a single pitch crag with a top rope. Stay away from popular routes, and ideally choose a crag which has crack climbs that are easy to protect. By setting up a top rope and a fixed rope, you can safely practice placing gear, dew-mooring, cleaning gear, hauling, and rappelling with a haul bag. Progress to leading without a top rope once you're confident moving up your aiders and testing gear. Make sure to practice on different angles of rock. Start with slightly less than vertical, and then progress to steeper rock and overhangs. It's better to practice with your partner rather than going alone, but if you do decide to practice by yourself, you'll need a solid understanding of self-rescue, which is covered in a different course, and you'll also need a bomber top rope solo setup. I hope to make a full course about top rope soloing soon. Not only does it look super fashionable, but aid bouldering is also a good way to learn how to place gear. Stay far away from established routes when placing hooks, copperheads or pitons. These types of gear will permanently damage the rock, so find a worthless lump of non-climbable choss in the middle of nowhere to practice placing these pieces of gear. Keep practicing, get all the skills totally dialed, get psyched and get on the wall.